first place? Who sent this officer? How did this happen? What happened in the house that day? What happened after? How did the investigation go? Those are all unanswered questions right now. What we do know is that the RCMP has concluded an investigation, ACER has concluded the review of that, and that we know no charges are laid. But that doesn't mean that we're in a situation now where people feel that they know what happened. And so that's why an inquiry has to happen. I don't know what the factual findings were. I haven't seen it. And I think I speak for a lot of people in this province when I say I think we all want to know.
So have you seen this report? Have you seen this report?
No, no.
Have you asked to see a copy of it?
I have not asked to see the report because it's, again, it's an investigation. I think the proper place for this to come out is an inquiry, under the lights of an inquiry with the commissioner, with cross-examination. I think that's the proper place. An Attorney General doesn't normally get involved in investigations or matters of this nature. I guess my role as the Minister and the Attorney General is to ensure the administration of justice, to ensure that everything's being done that needs to be done, which is why we asked for we made the request on behalf of the RCMP to have the independent force done, why we've committed to having an independent civilian organization put in place for these situations, why we've committed to an inquiry that will happen. These are the things that I have to, basically at this point concern myself with, knowing that an inquiry will lead to everything getting out there.
In your mind, has there been an independent investigation of Don Dunphy's shooting? Because ACER looked at the RCMP's investigation, but they didn't do their own investigation of the death of Don Dunphy. Has there been an independent investigation of that?
Well, again, I had to look at what ACER has done here. They've done, from what I've been told, a very thorough, comprehensive, again, we look at the time that was put into this. I've been told that it was a very thorough review of the RCMP investigation. But again, these are all matters that I think if the questions may need to be asked at an inquiry, and that's why we're looking right now. Work has already started on getting the terms of reference drafted up, and we want to make sure if there's questions to be asked that to get out there. I'm sure, I know the general public has a huge, I guess, concern about this and a huge interest in this. I am sure that the family will as well, so we'll be listening, and again, these are all things that we need to put together so that we have as broad an inquiry as possible. I don't want to be a part of an inquiry that when it's all said and done, people are sat back saying, well, I feel there's still questions there. So that's why we're trying our best to make sure that we cover everything off here. So we're moving as quickly as possibly, but I don't want to rush this. And there's a lot of logistics to these types of things. Again, we have I've reached out to the Chief Justice to come, to secure a commissioner. We're looking at the space. Where can we hold this? There's a whole range of concerns that we have to address, and that's started. But there's a lot of work to be done that will address, I guess, the questions and what the terms of reference. What are we trying to find out through this inquiry?
For a year and a half, people have been basically told they have to wait and just, the answers will come eventually, but wait for the police investigation, wait for the inquiry, wait. In that absence of information, there's been a lot of suspicion and acrimony around the conduct of the police and what may have happened in that house. To what extent are you concerned about public faith in the police force and the fact that there have been no answers for such a long period of time?
Well, this is one of the, obviously, the drawbacks here, is that I know the public want information now. They wanted information a year and a half ago. But that's just the nature of this, that we have to allow these investigations to happen. We need to allow this work to be done so that it's not tainted. I guess it's the same reason why we can't have information out there now that could possibly taint the inquiry. I mean, what I can say, I'm speaking not just, I guess, in my role as the minister, but as a citizen, someone that, saw this happening on the news like everybody else. I'd like to know what happened. We all want to know, and I know it's frustrating, but I want this to be done right. And I would rather have us take the time that's necessary rather than rush it and have somebody say you didn't handle it properly. And that's where I am. So I understand the frustration. I'm frustrated. But I don't want people saying that you botched this in some way by putting out information that taints it, by not doing things properly, by rushing this. So you have to find that balance. But, this has been 19 months, and again, I know that people in law enforcement might say that that's a normal time frame for this, but that's hard to, it's hard to stomach that, I'm sure, when you're a family or when you're a citizen. And, and I do have a job, and we do have to maintain public confidence in our police. And, I do have confidence in our police. This is, a very serious episode, but we have police acting every single day, 24/7, and I have faith in them, our police forces. But when things like this happen, they've happened in the past, we need to take the steps necessary to hopefully ensure that they don't happen again.
Will the family's legal representation at the inquiry, will that be covered? The cost?
Well, again, these are things that we're working out. It's my understanding generally when it comes to a commission of inquiry that there's a number of lawyers that are involved. There's various forms of coverage here. There's lawyers for people that were involved and lawyers for different, lawyers for government. And so that's one of the things obviously that we'll be considering as well is that, there's a family involved here. And I know that Miss Breen has been acting for that family. I've been in touch with her. And so again, I can't answer definitively, but that's one of the things to getting this inquiry. One of the aspects is making sure that there's legal coverage, for all people involved.
I know it's early days, have you set a budget yet about how much this inquiry may cost?
Well, I know that the past number of inquiries have ranged from somewhere from 1.2 million to just around 5.6 million. So that's the range that we have. I don't think it's going to be that high. I'd like to think that. So we're at that in a situation where we all know the fiscal situation. We'll take steps that are necessary to reduce costs. For instance, if we hold it, I'm sure there's government-owned space that we can hold this in. These are the things hopefully we can reduce costs that way. But that being said, we're not going to cut costs when it comes to an inquiry of this nature. We need to ensure that it's done right, because at the end of the day, again, comes back down to public confidence, comes down to findings of fact, and it comes down to recommendations that hopefully help us as police, as citizens, as government and policymakers to avoid these situations in the future.
Speaking of those recommendations, I know it's probably too early, but how quickly would you act to implement them?
Pretty early on that, we don't have a terms of reference. We haven't had a hearing. We don't know what the recommendations will be. So that's really early to get into that. But what I will say is that when you take the time and financial resources to invest into any kind of inquiry, you have to know that there's recommendations coming, and then you have to be prepared to listen to them, and so there's a responsibility, I think, as well.
ACERT made recommendations as well. Are those going to be released publicly?
Again, I don't think that's the plan. ACERT owns, I guess, those recommendations. I don't have them. Any information I've had, I've released. I want it all to be part of an inquiry. Well, that's where I am. It all needs to come out here. If we get through an inquiry and the inquiry's done, and there's still questions being asked, then we're missing something.
But if ACERT is making recommendations about how investigations like this are conducted,
Yeah.
shouldn't those be implemented? And how can we know if they're implemented if we don't know what they are?
These are things that we have to get through. I agree. The public needs to have disclosure, but I can't compel ACERT to release something that I have no authority to do, either as an attorney general or as a politician. That's, the only way you can compel that is through a commission of inquiry or through a court order.
Will the commission inquiry begin before Christmas? Can you say?
I don't want to put a date out there, because again, at this point, we don't have a commissioner, we don't have a terms of reference. We're putting together drafts right now, but again, it's standard protocol that you have to discuss those with the judge that's going to hear it. I don't want to put something out there that I don't have control of right now. And so there's a lot of things at play. But I mean, obviously, I'm fully cognizant of the fact that we've been waiting a long time. So I want to see it start as soon as possible, just as much as anybody else.
What's the next step?
The next step now is continue on terms of reference and try to figure out the logistical side. Who's going to hear it? What are the terms of reference going to be? Who are the staff that we need to get in? What is the space going to be? How comprehensive is it going to be? And then you have to get schedules lined up. Everybody that's going to be a part, we have to work with the schedules that they already have. So whether it's the justice that hears it, whether it's the lawyers, whether it's the staff. So there's a bunch of things like that we're working on. And again, that takes some time, but there's, no doubt there's going to be a rush to try to move forward.
Sorry, sir, just getting back to what I was
Yeah.
asking about before, on the recommendations from ACERT to the RCMP in Newfoundland and
Yeah.
Labrador, as Minister of Justice, you have no power to compel or ask the RCMP to implement those recommendations?
No, it's a known fact that it's improper for a politician to get involved in the operational aspects of policing, to tell police how to operate. That's not how the system's supposed to work. And in fact, when it's happened that way in the past, it's led to very bad results. So ACERT or RCMP, RNC, whoever, I can't tell them what they should do. That there's a separation between the executive and the operational side. And so I'm going to maintain that same way I've tried to maintain to not be involved in this process, because I think that, number one, it's improper. Number two, I don't have the authority to do that. It's not anywhere. So again, I know that might be hard for people to think that we can't just tell them what we want, but I mean, I don't have the authority to tell police how to operate.
So who would ultimately have ownership of the policies of the RCMP in Newfoundland?
RNC operations are part of, say, the RNC.
No, not the RNC.
Oh, RCMP. Well, again, RCMP is a little bit different. Obviously, they operate in every province through their divisions, but it's a federal force. But I want to come back to what I'm trying to accomplish and what I do have the ability to do. It's twofold. Number one, I have the ability, along with Cabinet and the Premier, is to call an inquiry. And then that inquiry, we have the ability to give the Commissioner all the powers we can to authorize who is subpoenaed, who testifies, and who has to answer questions, what documentation and evidence has to be disclosed. I'd like to see everything come out. The second part of that is that, again, going forward, and we're committed to this, and again, there's work ongoing, is that we need our own civilian oversight operation here to avoid these situations where we have what we've had, which is one force investigating the other. It doesn't carry great weight with the public. It's been known. In fact, I've said it before. We had an inquiry 15 years ago that said the same thing, and it wasn't done.
You mentioned you're frustrated with this. What has frustrated you about this?
Well, I guess from the start, I don't think that, and again, there's nothing to do with the RCMP or RNC, but they shouldn't be investigating each other. And we've said that. I mean, I haven't been in this position that long. One of the first announcements that we made is that we think we need civilian independent oversight, and it's for everybody's protection, including and especially our police forces. They want it. In fact, they reach out to me and say, you know, I hope you get this going, because we operate, you know, we're highly trained, we work hard, but, you know, we're out there on the streets and we live in these communities. We don't want people looking down on us. That degrades and undermines public confidence in what they do. They want this. So that's one of the things I think is that, so we have an RCMP investigation that took up till, I'm trying to think of January, I think it was. And then in January, we authorized the use of Alberta's CERT team. That takes till August. That's frustrating. I mean, we don't know the facts. I'm answering questions here, and people are saying, well, releasing reports. I don't have any reports to release. I don't have any information. It's not proper that I have it. So I'm like many citizens here. We want the information, so what we're doing is what we can to get that out there. But at the same time, recognizing that, look, as much as we want that, we've got to allow these processes to operate. If I don't think people would like the alternative, which is an attorney general or a politician telling the police to get it done or to cut corners or do things that aren't right. And that's not where we are either.
Minister, will this inquiry have the power to amend some of the things that maybe the RCMP can do, or will it only be focusing on the RNC?
No, I think we have to deal with police forces in the province in general. And again, I don't want to get too far into it and prejudge what our terms of reference can be. But we have to look at everything here. And part of that is that how are we into this situation? Not only the what happened, but what happened after that in terms of the investigation to avoid this, because I don't think anybody wants to see a repeat of this.
But if you have no power to compel either of the police forces in this province to change policies on anything, then what's the point of getting an inquiry with recommendations?
Well, again, there's going to be recommendations that come, and these will help guide us as policymakers and help guide the police forces as well. Again, I'm sure everybody's going to see this, whether it's the RCMP in Ottawa, whether it's the RNC here, they're going to see recommendations. I think I don't call the police and tell them what to investigate. I don't tell them how to investigate. That's not how this works. So again, there's recommendations that are come, but right now at this stage, where my head really is I think we need to get this set up, set out the terms of reference, that everything that comes out of it, and mainly get to the facts. That's where we are now. Where are the facts? What happened from start to finish here? We know, from April 3rd right up till today in many ways.
As a citizen, do you feel like the RCMP and the RNC have been sufficiently transparent and accountable through this process?
I think it's difficult when we see a situation like this to understand why we can't get all the information we want right away. But I have to trust the fact that when it comes to police investigations, that by putting everything out there, it may jeopardize an investigation. That's my understanding of it, when you put all the information out there. So again, we have the trust in our, and again, I don't think this is just here in this province, I think that's everywhere. What we have to hope is that we get everything at the end of it. But I mean, right now, you know, there's no statute of limitations on things like this either. I mean, this is we know there's no charges right now, but if more information were to come forward.
You think there's a chance that Joe Smith?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that there's a reason that police do this. We have the trust in the fact that if they put everything out there, it might jeopardize an investigation. It's not, I don't want to be there. I don't want to be there at all.
You mentioned you've had conversations today. Do you have any sense as to how the Dunphy family is responding to all this so far today?
I can only assume that it's a tough day. I'm sure it's been a tough year and a half. Again, I don't know the full, I'm sure at some point that Ms. Breen, as the representative and spokesperson, will say something on behalf of the family, so I'll let them speak. All I know is that obviously it's been extremely tough for them. It has to be. You know, this was a tragedy, and so for that we offer our condolences. All right. Thank you, folks.